Welcome to Newsroom. I am KEJANG Henri in Douala, Cameroon. The talk of the week was the National Bilingualism Day and Bilingualism Week, as the youths of Cameroon will jealously cherish bilingualism as an asset to emergence. And of course, we are going to take a retrospective analysis on whether or not Cameroonians are bilingual, not only the youths. And of course, see how much the youths are expecting to emerge after they will be celebrating the 48th anniversary of the National Youth Day. Thanks for joining me on the program Newsroom. Welcome, and the first things first, we have to line up for today's program. Mr. Ngang Sylvester is the Public Relations Officer of the Teachers Association of Cameroon, of course. And he is a crusader and trade unionist when it comes to the issues of teachers. Thanks very much, Mr. Ngang, for having accepted my invitation, coming all the way from the Northwest region.
Thank you, Mr. KEJANG. Glad to be here.
And I must say, Happy Youth Day.
Happy Youth Day, Mr. KEJANG.
Yeah, the topic of the week was bilingualism, and we are discovering gradually that there is much talk about bilingualism, but I think very little is done, at least at the level of governance, to make sure they promote bilingualism. Is that your take?
Yes, Mr. KEJANG. So much talk about bilingualism. It's even been turned to a celebration. And we wonder what is being celebrated. You know, Cameroonians tend to celebrate everything. This bilingualism thing, we know Cameroon got into it ill-prepared. And now, 50 years after independence, we are not really doing what is supposed to be done for bilingualism to take its course. And this bilingualism virtues like peace and like unity. These are virtues that are lived. We don't celebrate them. So bilingualism is supposed to be lived, and we're celebrating it. But we need to understand that why we celebrate bilingualism is a source of frustration for so many thousands of Cameroonians. It's a source of pain and it's a source of embarrassment, because in a bilingual country, you're supposed to have a choice. Choose to face a language you don't know, or not to. Just like you choose to travel to a country of a foreign language or not to. But in our context, many people have it very hard with bilingualism, and we think that we should stop celebrating and go back to the drawing board and see how the country can be actually bilingual. I want you to know that there are so many parts of this country, like in the Northwest and Southwest, that have not known, for example, schools that have not known a French teacher to teach French. And to these children, bilingualism is a strange thing. What are we celebrating? So I think that it is not supposed to be celebrated. It has to depend on policy. The system and those in power have to be working on bringing out policy that can enhance the growth of bilingualism and not celebrating it. And
the policies have been brought out since 1972, gradually right up to this particular time that we are talking. Especially when the ordinance came out in 2005, you know, in the practice and promotion of bilingualism in the country by the youths. We'll be coming back to you to talk more. And I equally have on the panel Mr. Tasson George Anu. He is a publisher, translator. And I want to say thanks for having accepted my invitation, Mr. George.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Henry. It's one more I'm back on your deck.
Happy New Year. Happy Youth Day.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, you had Mr. Ngang talk there about the problem of bilingualism. But then you, as a translator, how do you feel when you see one language based on the Constitution that there must be on equal status, but we see one language is suddenly becoming a language that is relegated to the background? Is it painful? Does it hurt?
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Henry. You know, as a translator, if you want to translate from one language to another, if you want to translate on a particular aspect, let's say mathematics, you must have to read two books equally. And then if you talk of equality, it means that English and French in Cameroon, let's take for the case of Cameroon, the two languages, as our constitution says, they should be equal. If English is taken to the background, is because of the
systemic?
Not the system, the population that speaks the language. French is dominating because the Francophones has a majority in Cameroon society, as we really put it. And then, if we want to judge the two languages constitutionally, we would like to say that English would have been more promoted than French in order to make the two languages be equal. But what I will point out is that the authority, most of them are afraid to take the bull by the horns. I mean to say that they don't want to learn English, or in the other hand, the Anglophones don't want to learn French. Those who are at the top, because they feel that it is difficult for them to learn. And you cannot begin to push somebody to do something, meanwhile you are unable to do it. And that's why you see laxity over this bilingualism case. And as my last speaker just said, there's a lot of noise made over bilingualism, but there are no plans. If there were plans, we would not be here today talking about bilingualism. Everybody would already be bilingual after about 30 years of...
50 years.
50 years.
54 years today.
54 years today.
Right.
Yeah, you see.
Mr. Gang, you...
Yes, Mr. KEJANG, I want to say that all authorities in Cameroon, parents on the Francophone side, like on the Anglophone side, understand that English is an international language, the dominant language, business language, language of science. And that is justified, or you can see that by the fact that most Francophones are sending their children to the Anglophone schools. But the problem, like I say, is with those who are leading us. Cameroon is heterogeneous. It is bilingual. It is bicultural. And I have the impression that it is a little too complex for those who are ruling right now. Because if the policies were put in place, we will not be where we are. Look, when I talk of French being a source of pain, you need to note that, for example, when in examination like competitive exams, one person from one language sets and translates for others, those on the other languages are in pain. You need to know that in some parts of Cameroon, most of the ministerial directives, or how do I call it, ministerial arrêtés, they come down to the field in French. To the workers down there, to the administrators down there, it's an embarrassment. You need to know that when you are an Anglophone child in an English class that is taught by a Francophone, it is frustration. And we put the focus on secondary education because it's at the base. You know, as you rise on the academic ladder, the need for pedagogy falls, and the need for subject matter arises. That's why we are talking about a sector that is sensitive. Just a single appearance of a teacher with a foreign language trying to teach a subject like physics or French in a class of 50,
it's an aberration.
You might destroy a good number of children, and they will never want to hear yes.
Well, thanks very much, Mr. Ngang Sylvester Yengo. He is the Public Relations Officer of the Teachers Association of Cameroon, and I must say that he's a physics teacher. That's why he's talking about the language of science, English being the language of science. Thanks very much. Now, we move into our story of the week. Then we shall come back to have our first discussion for the day. Thanks to our man of the beat, Roland. Officials in charge of the promotion of bilingualism at the Delegation of Basic Education for the Littoral region have confirmed the positive strides made in the mastery of both French and English by young children.
Comparatively, a few years back, it was not easy to even get the teachers to teach the second languages in their classes. And when we succeeded eventually in developing their interests and instructing that they must teach as per the prescriptions of hierarchy, we are truly noticing. In the first school living certificate, for the past years, we have not had less than 90% success rate in French for the English speaking, and in the certificate d'études primaires for the French speaking. So just from their performances at the exams, we are noticing that there's a lot of progress.
Bilingualism is not a thing of a particular linguistic or cultural group, and so the progress made, though not very much, is significant and encouraging in the teaching of younger ones. Just how do teachers cope to help young ones to develop interest in a second language?
For those in the nursery school, we start from images and colors, which attracts them. And then we get them now, they start associating the words to what is really their first interest, which are the colors and the images, the pictures. So you will notice that in most of the books that we use that are authorized to use in nursery schools, you will find very little of written words you see more of colors, and you will see a lot of pictures. And most often the methods that we adopt with them is what we call the playway method. You see through songs, rhymes, and then images and colors. So they get attracted, and then we gradually now get into introduce the sounds and the words associated. Like if you open a nursery school book, a child will immediately see a ball. You know they like balls. Young boys will always like balls. That's when we can start now teaching the letter B. The young girl will see a doll, and they will be interested in doll because it attracts them and maintains their interest in what they like. And then you can go ahead now to introduce the sound and then the word.
The improvement in the teaching of French and English in Cameroon was buttressed by the 1998 law that laid down guidelines for education in Cameroon. Welcome back, Mr. Gansylvester. You are a teacher, you are a pedagogue. You heard another teacher talk there on the percentage, the score in the teaching and practice of the second language or bilingualism in the region. That is a case study, the littoral region. Reaction?
My reaction is that it is a very good picture she's painting there, but it is limited. It's not representative of the whole nation. The littoral region it's like the center. It's like this economic capital, of course. But the authorities of this nation have the capacity to place a French teacher, a bilingual teacher who is French predominantly, in every primary school in the villages of the Northwest and the Southwest region, for example. In the Pinin area, every primary school, for example, should have a bilingual teacher who is more francophone. But that's not the picture we have. Even the main secondary, there are secondary schools in that area which have never seen a bilingual teacher. So this picture is cosmetic. It doesn't really show the reality.
And there are maybe areas too in the east of Cameroon that have never known an English teacher.
An English teacher. Though the trend is that so many Anglophone graduates have been sent to the far north and to the east. I think the trend is one way. It should be balanced. Because if not, we cannot talk bilingualism.
Bilingualism, Mr. Tasong, in the sense that we look at the practice in Canada, do you think it's the same complaint that the Quebecers will have to put forward when they want to talk about bilingualism in their own context?
Yeah, in Canada, it is a different context because the French are the minority and the English are the majority. I think they still have the same problem, but not as one that we have in Cameroon, because there everything is organized. You know what to do. You know that this, like in the Quebec, which is French speaking, they know that this is a program that we have to follow in the English language. Everything is planned. In the other side, they know that this is the plan that we have to follow in the French language in order to make the other part bilingual. But for the case of Cameroon, I'm doubting why they are always forcing only Anglophones to teach English to Francophones, forcing Francophones to teach French to the Anglophones. Why can't we train Anglophones to teach French to the Anglophones and train Francophones to teach English to the Francophones? Let me just give you an example. A Francophone who wants to go to the States or to Britain, he studies English for 1 week and is able to speak English. Why can't we take this kind of cases?
It is possible to do that here.
It is possible to do that here. If you are willing to do it, why can't you go ahead like the other people who usually plan to go to Europe and they learn English for 3 weeks and they succeed and they go to Europe and they study in Anglo-Saxon university without any problem?
Mr. Ngana.
Yes, Mr. KEJANG. I'm happy you've mentioned Canada. In fact, bilingualism and biculturalism is a system that can only be managed in a federal structure. And the Canadian system is somehow stable because it's a federal state. The confusion we have in Cameroon does not exist in Canada because Canada is a federal republic and each state manages its affairs. You choose to cross to the other side and face the challenges of the other language or not. But the problems we have here is that everything has been put in one soup. So we missed the Canadian model in 1972. That's why, to me, the worst day in Cameroon history is 1972, 20th May 1972, when the federal state was dissolved. It would have been better, would have had a better picture now if we were still in that federal context. And I pray that one day we'll move back to it.
When do we move back to aid? Now, if we look at the evolutions, the developments so far, and the various texts, the arrêtés, the ordinances, don't you think it is a stride, Mr. Tasso? It's a positive stride anyway.
Yes, I think that if we look at it, what I really feel bad is that the takeoff was not the really takeoff. There were no plans. I think imagine the two parts of Cameroon was a surprise. They didn't plan that if the two parts of Cameroon emerge, what are we really going to do as the languages are concerned? And that's why you see that, as you just mentioned, that most of the texts that come from Yaoundé are in French. And they send it to the Anglophone zone, where there are no translators. You see, those who are there, if you're an administrator and you receive such a document, how are you going to apply it, Mr. Journalist? You see that you have loopholes in the document, because there are some words that you may not even know the meaning. You may apply it contrary, and you see that your function will not be the real function that you are playing in the field.
It is clear to us that there was some bad faith and bad intention somewhere, because even the laws that we have been talking about, like mentioned in that report, the 1998 law, that law was designed to help us go out of disorder, but much of it is not being respected. If that law were to be respected, bilingualism would be better for us. The context would be better and people would be more at ease. But if they are not respecting the law, certainly there is some bad faith. Or, like I say, the system is just too complicated for those who are managing it now and they don't know what to do with it.
Now, I suppose you got some vibes about the FUMBA Constitutional Conference, which some people say when the draft constitution, when they were adopting the draft constitution, it was done in one language. And when they said this is in one language, they said, okay, that will be taken care of after. Was it an aspect of bad faith, or was it an aspect of maybe planning for something better, so that the documents will be translated orderly?
Yes.
Because I hear the constitution, the draft was sent to the delegation of Southern Cameroons, which delegation have found it so difficult to understand the language. Yeah. Mr. Tasso.
It's what I've just mentioned. It's what I've just mentioned. That it may be it was not a bad faith. They managed to do it in the language that they understood better. And so they think that at that moment, it may be we didn't have qualified translators who could help them to translate. But they thought that in the future, they might get good translators to translate. You know, as bilingualism is concerned, it is difficult to translate from one language to another. It is even sometimes more difficult than a mathematical problem that you are solving. Because it is not difficult, it's not easy for you, when we are speaking, you think it is easy as that to translate what you have said in a second language. And that is why, at that particular moment, they found that it were better for them to keep it aside and then find good translator to handle it. I think it was not a bad fit as such.
Mr. KEJANG, I am not a historian, but it is well known to us that this Anglo-Franco-French-English imbalance began far back in that history. We understood that during those deliberations, the French part of the country was backed. They were backed by French authorities, French legal experts, French lawyers. But also on the other side, there was no support. And now people went to that conference without really having a focus. They were ill prepared for that conference. That's why the outcome of it is what we have now. So this imbalance has existed since. And like I said before, the worst thing that ever happened was to switch from a federal state to a unity state when we were already having problems with managing the system of two languages and two cultures.
Now let us look at, now the government is doing much. I'll come to you. You are a translator and you are equally a teacher. Now, but the government is doing much to make sure that both languages have equal status, at least, if at all, they have to right the wrongs of colonialism. Now, don't just look at the bilingual programs that are introduced in schools as something better off. Maybe in the next 20 years, our students or our children will emerge, you know, to be very bilingual.
Yes.
Even those who are still in the very, very far off hinterlands.
Yes. As far as I know, I've taught English in many schools. What I know is that we still have a lot to do in order to get where we are going. Because if you see the books that are used, especially the English book used in the Francophone zone, there is a lot of laxity in the books. Students themselves have a lot of difficulties understanding what is inside these books. It means that From the result, as I just mentioned, as one of our colleagues mentioned in the news, as we have said, from the result, we will have started thinking what to do next in order to ease the work of these students. Why are they saying, this is the common saying in the Francophone schools, c'est Dieu qui donne l'anglais, c'est Dieu qui donne l'anglais. You see that each time they say c'est Dieu qui donne l'anglais, and then we should think why they are saying c'est Dieu qui donne l'anglais in all the classes. And let me just tell you something, maybe back to the teachers. Just go around the English classes when the English classes are going on in schools. Most of the students are sleeping.
In the Francophone schools?
In the Francophone schools, most of the students are sleeping.
And some pass through the windows.
Yeah, and then you see that, and they said when teacher comes in, I just pick my bag, hang it on my shoulder, and I walk out. Why are they walking out? It's because they don't understand what the teacher is saying. Why can't we do something that they will understand what the teacher is saying?
But there's a problem, Mr. Anu. What is the problem here? Because you are all teachers, and I understand that the administration of the school, and we know, for example, for sure that English language in some schools, I don't know, I think it's question 4, or maybe question 3, it depends on which school. Now, don't you think that a student moving out of that school or class might have a problem? Maybe in struggling to meet up with his exams, which is a compulsory subject.
Well, by my observation, in the schools I've been involved with in the English Anglophone section of the country, our children are willing to learn French. In fact, they're yearning to study. But the opportunity is not given to them. When there's no French teacher in the school, like in my school, GHS Kwang.
Kwang is precisely in Pinyin, around Pinyin.
Yes.
Yeah, that's good.
This is my 3rd year in that school. And that school has been running with one French teacher.
For the whole school?
For the whole school. For the past 7 years, I think that colleague has been in that school. He has been alone. And I'm not sure the other secondary schools around Pinyin have had a French teacher. So coming back to that special bilingual program, in one of our national executive meetings in the Teachers Association of Cameroon, we paid attention, we analyzed the maiden edition of that exam. It was too bad, Mr. KEJANG. And I want to tell you that that is not a solution to bilingualism. It is somehow elitist. It's elitist in the sense that you're selecting the best, those who are already somehow very bilingual, to train as some special, I don't know where we're heading to with that kind of idea. But supposing it was a good idea, it is very poorly handled. And this was supposed to be happening in a context where the two systems have been harmonized as prescribed by the law, the 1998 law. That means what? The law prescribed that the two systems will be organized into 2 cycles, 5 years. That's from 1 to 5, and then lower upper 6. But the BPC, the maiden edition of the BPC was written in class 4. We don't even know what's going to happen with the Anglophone candidates. What are they going to do? We don't even hear them saying anything. We don't know what the way forward is. And for that maiden edition, it was so poorly handled that we wondered who were the people in charge. Very, very poor translation, wrong setting, inconsistent timing. It was just a mess, Mr. KEJANG. I'm not telling you a story. It is concrete.
Well, thanks very much, Mr. Ngang Sylvester, Mr. Anu Tasong. When you look at in our military, for example, there is a serious problem. I've managed to corner quite a lot of military officers of English expression, but when I find out a translation of a certain military jargon, they will tell you they don't know. They understand it only in French language. Do you think it's time for that?
Military, you don't need to bother yourself. Military training is done in French. It's purely French. If you take a first school level Anglophone who goes for military training in Cameroon, after training is more French than English, sincerely. You meet gendarmes on the road who are from the Northwest province, they speak French to you as if they are Francophones. So that is clear. Military training is French. So I don't think that there's any...
Which, yes, Mr. Tasson.
Yeah. This is the problem that I think if we are here to talk on bilingualism, we have to look at it correctly. The greatest problem that he has just said is because Francophone are the predominant factor. And everybody thinks that if I don't speak French, I will not be a Cameroonian. That is where I wanted to land by saying that when we were celebrating the Bilingualism Week, I did not see any company advertising the Bilingualism Week. I did not see any office advertising the Bilingualism Week. But where are we heading to? It means that this Bilingualism Week was only allocated for the children and nobody else. And then if the companies didn't advertise the Bilingualism Week, in the market, I didn't see any sign that there was bilingualism week going on.
But why?
Yeah, in the market, we content ourselves with our pidgin.
Yes.
No, but why? It concerns everybody in Cameroon.
We are saying that
it is Cameroon is the name of Cameroon bilingual or Cameroon themselves are bilingual.
We are saying that the aspect of celebration of bilingualism should stop in Cameroon.
It may be.
There are countries that are more bilingual than Cameroon, and they're not celebrating bilingualism. There are countries in this world where Anglophones will study more comfortably in universities. But those countries are not celebrating bilingualism. I think it's too cosmetic what we are doing. We need to go back to the base. Like you were asking, what can be done? The state should place a bilingual teacher in every primary school and in every secondary school of the Republic.
You are just saying something very important, and let me just come to this. There is this 1995 law, retain, as we're going to call it, and it's written in French, but I'll now have to give an approximate translation that the post of inspectors will be suppressed, you know. And in 1991, they said that the general provisions, pedagogic inspectors in charge of the training of teachers, trainers, that was in 1996, will make sure that they be tested in any of the official languages. That is, the Francophones will be tested and trained in French, while the Francophones...
While the Anglophones?
Vice versa. Now, don't you think that the 1996 law is doing something better on that?
It is doing something better like all the other laws, but they are not respected. The system is not... Because when you make a law to defend a system, you now need to define policies that will make the law fit. When there are not policies, the law is useless. Like I told you, the 1998 law, by that 1998 law, so many things would have changed with our system. They are not bothering about it. Preparatory is not disappearing. BPC is still taken in class 4. Nothing is happening. So the law, yes, but policies need to be brought in to make the law fit.
Last word on bilingualism, Mr. Tasong, translator. Do you see a day where we will stop having approximate translation on our billboards and in official documents, yes, and official examinations, where each and every candidate might feel comfortable with his or her language?
Yes, I think I will say something else before I go to your question. If you look at the way the bilingual schools are functioning in Cameroon, there is something that we have to point out. According to me, we would have had a Francophone class after it is an Anglophone class. But when you go to those bilingual schools, there is a well given to Francophones and there is not a well given to Anglophones. So you see, it may be as if in
but
schools...
the mix-up during break time, break hours, and speak amongst themselves.
Please, that is too complicated. It cannot work. Remember, there are only 2 countries in this world that are termed bilingual. And the other country, like we've said, is Canada. And they're operating on a federal system. What we are saying, it is too ideal to work. It's too ideal and too expensive. We cannot be able to implement that kind of system. We have to give respect to each language and make the base, let things be in a way that every Cameroonian should choose to face the challenges of another language. Not embarrassment, not frustration, and not the disorder that we live in.
And then you have to learn now. Which way forward for translators, interpreters?
Yeah.
Some of them put their heads when they find funny translations.
Yes, because
they can't contain that.
I think that we need to start training our children from the word go on translation. Because Cameroon would have been like a bed seat where they come in and look for translators. Because we are the only country in Africa that speak both French and English. We would have been selling our products as translators. But that's not the case.
Though we still sell.
Yeah.
Not as much as Cameroonians are expecting.
Yeah.
Well, we have to take a break. Thanks to Ndifo and, of course, Roland, our producer for today's program. And, of course, let us look at the situation as our youths will be celebrating 48 years or 48th anniversary of their day, with some challenges ahead. Thanks to our Northwest Regional Bureau Chief, Annie Collins, who sent us this report.
Due to the problems plaguing youths of contemporary Cameroon, the Ministry of Youth Affairs and Civic Education has decided to launch this year's Youth Week activities in 3 localities.
These localities are Maga in the far north region, Wum in the northwest region, and Wela in the east region. These three areas summarize the complex challenges that young people in particular and all the population in general are currently facing. To help those young people who encounter difficulties in their day-to-day life, the government has developed various strategies.
WOM is the second of a three-region tour, and the minister, during a working session with a cross-section of youths of the Northwest, gave room for the governor and some senior officials of his ministry to help him convince the youngsters of government's good intentions for them.
For long, we have never had a generation of young people coming up as politicians. You imagine that the youngest mayor in the country is from Menchum Division. We have youth employment, we have holiday jobs and so on that we have brought in this time. So we have about 20% of the budget devoted to youth activities.
The young men and women complained that their peers back in the villages were already resigning to life's challenges, while others are threatening to join secessionist movements for a way out. Bidong Pat said the creation of the National Youth Council, the Civic Service Agency for Participation in Development, PAGEU, and PIFMAS programs should be taken seriously. The ministerial delegation made stops over at Lignos and a survival refugee camp in Fungom subdivision before handing over gifts to some survivors and to inmates of the WOM principal prison.
Welcome back. Thanks, Annie Collins, our Northwest Regional Bureau Chief. And after 24 months of negotiations with ad hoc committee within the ad hoc committee and on instructions of the Prime Minister, head of government, the problems of teachers seem to be kept in the drawers. Which way forward for the teachers as they are clamoring to back or to down their chalks in two different instances as the children will be confronting end-of-year examinations? Mr. Ngang Sylvester, like I said, is the public relations officer of the Teachers Association of Cameroon. He is one of those trade unionists that wants to see the problems of the teachers resolved with immediate effect. Mr. Ngang, out of 9 trade unions, all for the fact that the problems have not been solved. A major highlight of the problems before we know what is going to come up.
The problems were simple. It was just a cross-section of the problems of teachers. It was about the integration of sports and physical education teachers and youth animators to the core of secondary education and basic education. It was about the revalorization of the research and documentation allowance. It was about the integration of contact teachers in basic education and secondary education, because contact teachers were to be integrated after some time as the contact specified. It was about academic honors, what they called in French, palme academique for teachers. And it was about, formulating some collective convention for private education, among so many things that the teachers have been clamoring for. And negotiations have gone for 24 months. Today is the second day after 24 months, and nothing serious is coming out. And teachers are saying they're tired of it. They're really tired.
Before we come to you, let me just ask, Mr. Ngang enumerated quite a lot of problems. Don't you think it's too much to be solved at once, Mr. Tasson George?
Yeah, when you keep accumulating what you're supposed to do, the job becomes more bigger for you. That is why you have enumerated all those problems that this problem have imposed to the government. If they were solving them one after another, we will not have that accumulation there. And then the government should know that if teachers are asking something, they are not asking for their own benefit. They are asking for the benefit of those who they are teaching. For instance, if you don't have documentation as a teacher, how are you going to cope? Because there are some certain things that even though you have the skill, but if you don't have the means to find them, you will not be able to find those, to do your research That's what I mean to say. You will not have the means to find your research. It means that you are not going to teach correctly. So for that reason, government is supposed to see into their problems, into the problem of the teachers as a whole, and begin to solve them one after another. You should not begin to accumulate and make a plan that, okay, if this time I solve this problem, next time I will solve the other one. The work will not be heavier for the government. That's why you see a lot of items enumerated.
Now, Mr. Ngang, is this the problem of, I'm sorry to say this, the entire teaching core of the country, or a particular teaching core?
This concerns principally, in fact, not principally, just basic and secondary. It's not about the university sector, basic and secondary. I want to point out that another demand was for the government to raise the index bar of teachers. You know, teachers, when you hit the bar, teachers hit the bar at 1,144 category A2. And many hit the bar and they spend 15 years on the spot. Whereas by raising their retirement age from 55 to 60, there was need for the bar to be moved, like in many other corps. Another demand that was even very important was the need for an education forum. Though in our meetings, we also wonder if they are reluctant to come up with a forum, it is justified by the fact that even the last forum has not been evaluated. And the proceedings and the outcome of the last forum have not been implemented, largely. So we are just wondering if this government actually knows that education is the bedrock of all civilization and that you cannot take the nation above the standards of the teachers.
Now, this crusade is going on. How very convincing are all the colleagues of yours in adhering to such a crusade?
That's not a good question to ask. 9 trade unions have been negotiating with government for the past 24 years. Those are trade unions that have following.
I'm saying that because some trade unions backed out of the negotiations. Is it on something triggered by some
Mr. KEJANG,
evil forces?
You know, there is some threat, some constant threat that trade unions have. There's this demon called divide and rule. The employer wants to kill trade union activities. And when he's not able to do that, he provokes the creation of other unions that impede the activities of the main unions.
So you are now saying that those who backed out of the negotiations were created by the government?
I don't know. I'm just saying that they are just adventurers, and most of them who back out don't have any following. Because if you have a following with such legitimate demands for teachers, you will stand by it.
Now, there is a problem, Mr. Tasson. Let me come there based on the documents that I have on the teachers' union. When you look at the hands of the government, it's like full with those demands. Is it possible to solve all those problems at once or take them gradually, like you were saying, so that this year we can solve the issue of index bar or raising the index bar, or this year we can solve the issue of absorbing part-time teachers and maybe some allowances for research and documentation before waiting for other issues?
Yeah, I think that this kind of problem, I know the government hands are full. And that's why in any country you have ministries. Each ministries know what to do. This kind of particular issue will have been given to experts of the Ministry of Education to take care and see the demands that are very urgent, so that those demands could be solved first. Because if the ministry is there, it means that there are experts in the ministry who knows better what to do. If the experts are in the ministry and they're not doing their job, they are the one to be blamed. Because the government is having a drag back because of those experts not doing their job effectively. You cannot keep demanding years upon years.
And the problems keep
accumulating. And this problem concerns all the teachers. It doesn't concern only the government teachers or the private teachers. It is the problem of all the teachers. So they should know that teachers are like the light of a country.
Yes.
Mr. KEJANG, I'd like to point out that out of the 7 demands that teachers table to government, only 2 of them have financial incidence on the budget. Raising the index bar of teachers and the research and documentation allowance. Now, the rest of the 5.
Collective bargaining for the private
yes,
sector.
All of those are simple things that teachers needed, like the integration of course, the integration of sports and physical education teachers to the core of teaching teaching corps will also have financial incidents. But those that don't have a financial incident, we have not seen government doing enough. So we think that it is just bad fit. And the fact that our system is in such a way that those who are feared are paid attention. And those who are not feared, they are left where they are.
Who are those feared?
I don't know, but government should know that the teaching...
You are
yes.
feared, and
I don't know, we
the
are
sports
not
and physical education teachers are not feared.
No, I mean, I'm talking about teaching, for example, because if the government feared the teaching corps, it's not even about fear. I don't want to use the word fear so much. It's about knowing the importance of the profession. It's about knowing that no nation can grow above the standard of its teachers. Cameroon is at the level where it is now, and that level reflects the standard of the teachers. It's about knowing the importance of the profession. But I don't know why we have to mobilize and go on a strike before government pays attention to our issues. That's why I'm bringing the issue of fear now.
Now, you mentioned a word, and that word is so big and frightening. We were talking about fear, and you mentioned the word, and I'm equally feared, or I'm afraid.
Yes.
You mentioned the word strike.
Of course.
Is there something in the pipeline?
Of course. After 24 months and 2 days of negotiations, teachers have been called to go on strike by the teachers' unions. And this strike is to begin on the 19th of February. 19th of February to the 22nd of February. And then from the 28th of April, 1 week. And teachers are called upon during this time not to withhold their marks for foot, feet, and sit sequence. It is really hard, but that's the best way we have now. We don't have a choice. That's the best way we have to let government understand that we need to be paid attention. The government needs to pay some attention to the issues of teachers, because it is not really normal what is happening. It's not normal.
You are a parent, apart from being a teacher. Would they withhold the results of your own children?
Why not?
Don't you see that it's dangerous to withhold results, or to withhold results on I see in this document, I think the 17th to the 22nd of February. It means that immediately after the Youth Days, teachers will have to go on strike, as per this document.
Yes.
And secondly, they will have to go on strike on the 20th, 28th, and 28th of April and 2nd of May. Don't you think it's dangerous, a period?
As a parent, as you have said, I will put myself...
At the time when the children were writing the end-of-year examinations?
Yes, as a parent...
Mr. Ngan, before you come in, Mr. Tasso.
As a parent, I will put myself on the place of a parent. You know, we are too sentimental. Yeah, we are too sentimental. But the government have parents too in the ministry. I think that this problem could be solved in one way or another. As I've just said, I mentioned experts. Why can't experts go closer to the teachers and listen to them and make their own proposals? Why should teachers always be the one to make proposals? They have already proposed their demands. I think experts would have gone closer to the teachers rather than waiting for the last minute to start rushing up and down. And if they rush up and down, the good terms may not even come out of what they will negotiate. I think that as a parent, it would not be too nice for the teachers to take that action, but they should keep knocking at the door of the ministry.
Mr. KEJANG,
Thanks. Yes.
What I want to say is it should not be misunderstood. It should not sound like teachers don't like the students. We love our students. We love the education of our students. We love our country. And that is even what is pushing us to take these steps. If we just let it go, it means that we don't care. It's because we care. It's because we understand that education is a master key to all doors. It's because we understand that education is about converting mirrors into windows and doors that we are doing this. Because it is clear to us that government seem not to understand what the stakes are. And we expect parents to stand by us. All parents are to stand by us in this action if they know what education is all about.
Now, you are apparently sending seismic warnings there, meaning that the teachers should be ready to face the government should be ready to face the unknown. Now, what if I still come back to this question, what if other trade unions back out of it?
No.
Or say, just like it happened the last time, I'm seeing here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 trade unions, and it's like, the seismic waves or seismic signals we are sending are too much.
They are not too much.
To strike the government.
No, they are not too much, Mr. KEJANG. A strike for 1 week. That's why the law of laws in trade unionism do not allow a trade union to call a strike for more than 1 week.
That's true.
It's because we want to pass a message. We don't want to destroy the system.
What do you think will be the fate of the students for 1 week? Classes that they would have.
It is not the first time teachers are going on strike in Cameroon. So it's happened.
Are you sure that?
And it will happen again and again if government does not take its responsibility.
Are you sure that they will face a trend so that the students will be able to absorb what they're supposed to absorb within that time frame and maybe measure up for the examinations?
I think those are not the worries we should raise now, Mr. KEJANG. It's not the first time. Like
Extra
I said,
cost for parents?
It's not the first time teachers are on strike in Cameroon. And the teachers know what they are doing. They are the experts. When government would take its stand and do things right, we'll go back to our job and do things right also for the children. I think that those fears you are raising are unfounded, I should say.
Well, let us have a break. Thanks to D4, our man on the beat, and of course, Roland. Then we shall come back. Welcome back. This is Newsroom coming to you from Douala, Cameroon. And if you are joining us, we are having Mr. Ngang Sylvester. He is a teacher and, of course, the public relation officer of the Teachers Association of Cameroon. And, of course, Mr. Tasson George. I know he is a publisher, translator. And, of course, the big issue is the bilingualism and the way forward for our teachers who are clamoring for better conditions. Mr. Ngang Sylvester, let me come there. When you look at the numerous problems that you've raised and going by the negotiations you had with the Prime Minister, 24 months is still very small to negotiate all those things. And when you look at the budget, the finance law 2014, did they include something in it?
I am not an expert in that domain of budgeting, but I know that these concerns have been raised 24 months ago. And if the government had that will to pay attention to our issues, it should have budgeted for all of this. And one other thing that aches teachers is that when it comes to the issues of teachers, government will always drag its legs, manipulate, turn around. I mean, I don't know. But for some other ministries, it is instant. I want to give you an example for this research and documentation allowance. You understand, you bear with me that in the Ministry of Higher Education, support staff, not university lecturers, support staff, right down to sweepers, are given research and documentation allowance, Mr. KEJANG. The least being 20,000 francs, right up to 40,000 francs for the highest category. Now, come to teachers of basic and secondary, the people who actually do the teaching. They are begging for these allowances. I mean,
the ones who lay the foundation.
Yes, that's just I think that make me to say that it's like the authorities that manage this nation are too insensitive. They don't understand the stakes. They don't know what education is like. There's a missing link between education and the fate of a country in terms of development. That is why the slogans of 2035, to me, I have permitted myself to call it slogans. Because the nations that would emerge in 5 years are not singing such slogans. They are quiet, and they're busy working, paying attention to the domains that are key to that kind of emergence. So I call them slogans, and I think they are political slogans. Otherwise, teachers will not be going on strike, Mr. KEJANG.
Now, we have a very short time to leave the studio, but then we cannot leave without asking a question to know if whether or not this situation can be abated, at least during the holidays when the students will have to go back, go out for holidays, then the government can maybe raise those maybe the government can solve these problems while on holidays so that the children can study and write their exams. No possibility of abating the situation?
We have a government headed by a president of the republic. And in so many instances, we have spoken to him directly, telling him that he should take the bull by the horns, because he is the one who has the power to decide on the destiny of this country. If he decides that this strike will not hold on the 17th, he will do it by acting accordingly. That's what I think I can say. It's as easy as that, Mr. KEJANG.
So when do we expect the official announcement of a strike action, if at all you are going on strike?
Mr. KEJANG.
It's already on the air.
If at all, it's just a coincidence that we had this program and we have to talk about the strike. Teachers are already informed about the strike. The President of the Republic was the first to be informed.
And so
the first letter went to
He's having a memo.
Of course. He was the first to receive information on this strike before teachers started receiving the memos. And this, the memos on the strike call are already nationwide. It's not...
Well, thanks very much. In fact, our youths will be going in for very fast for the 48th Youth Day celebration, but then they still raise concerns. Mr. George Tasson, any concerns for the youths?
Yes, there is a lot of concern for youth in Cameroon. You know, in most parts of Cameroon, the youth are left on their own, like in the interland. You see, in towns, you have like playing grounds, you have some games that are organized, but in the interland, you see the youth are just left on their own. There's no plan for the youth in the interland. And I wish the government think
agricultural plans, of course.
Yeah,
second generation agriculture, maybe many more youths will be involved, like the Minister of Agriculture said.
Yes. I wish the government think a lot in the interland so that this unemployment should be solved in the nearest future. Because if they know what to do tomorrow, they will not begin to be very loose as they are today.
Mr. George, Mr. Ngan Sylvester, the youths will be marching. That's another big celebration.
Yes.
They're marching in tears for some.
For all, this strike is going to affect all the youth of Cameroon. They'll march in tears, but I pray that all the youth, like parents, like I say, everyone is supposed to stand by us. And we know that if the president does his job, everything will be all right. But then, it is a week when youth are supposed to come out and manifest their strength, show the love for their country. And the only thing that the system can do for these children is to pay attention to the educational system, because that's what is supposed to convert them from the mirrors that they are to windows and doors for the system and for the whole nation to pass to emergence.
Well, I want to thank you all, gentlemen, for having respected my invitation. And of course, let me say, I wish you all, I know you will go for the celebration with your students. I wish you happy Youth Day. You are youth from 77 to 77. Okay. Now, happy Youth Day to our youths, and we know that the head of state will be addressing them on the 10th, that is on the eve of their Youth Day celebration. Now, if you want to get us, www.canadainternational.net, and then you have newsroom. And if there are comments, drop it. And I say goodbye from all of us, and happy Youth Day to our youths.